Dave Walker, welcome back to the Scholarship GPS podcast. I can't remember if this is number three or four with you, but we're so glad to have you here.
And I am very glad to be here. Thanks for asking me back.
Well, obviously you're one of our favorite guests, but when we were planning this out and you sent me your suggestion for the title of the episode, I was very intrigued. How to add 50 points to your SAT score in 2 weeks or less. That is quite the claim. And if anybody can make that claim legitimately, I know it's you. So that's why I was
Right.
happy to not only run with that title for this episode, but to have you on to talk about how to make that a reality.
Yeah, so it is a possibility, but before I get into that, I do want to mention that the number one, I want to qualify it, a little disclaimer to get things
Good.
kicked off
Okay.
here, right?
Yep.
So, as anyone who has followed me for any length of time already knows, this is a point that I like to emphasize and stress. Understanding or underestimating the amount of time and effort that it takes to get the desired target score, underestimating that runway, that necessary runway, is the number one mistake that people make. Okay.
Okay.
They think it's going to take, they don't understand the amount of time and effort it's going to take to get that target score. So I say that to get the point across that you should not misinterpret anything I say today, later in this podcast, as an excuse to procrastinate, okay? or or as suggesting that this is the ideal plan. This
Yeah.
is not the ideal plan. This is definitely a contingency for when life happened on the way to the SAT. Okay.
Right. Okay.
But with that said, if life in fact happened on the way to SAT prep and you found yourself with only 2 or 3 weeks left before the test date, all is not lost. The situation is not hopeless. Significant, well, for most students anyway, significant score gains can still be had with the right approach.
Okay. Okay. Well, and I think one thing I want to throw a caveat, and it's probably obvious, but I just want to make the point. We're saying how to add 50 points. So to add something, they would have already had to have taken the test once, right? This is
Yeah,
this
that's a
is
good.
not this is not really an approach for the first time SAT taker, or is it?
Well, it could be, but if that were the case, if you have never taken the test before, then the very, very first step would be to take a half an afternoon to figure out what your baseline is, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
figure out what your that is going to be the first step if that hasn't been taken care of already.
Yep.
Where are you starting from? And by the way, I should mention everything I'm talking about today pertains specifically to SAT reading and writing.
Yep. That was something
I'm
I wanted to make sure we clarified. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my area of specialty. Although specialization, although even though I can't get into the details of it, similar principles would apply to the math side as well.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Good. Well, I guess let's kind of start at a high level. What would be a general game plan for somebody looking to bump their score 50 points in 2 weeks?
Yeah, and I should also mention when I say significant score gains, look at all's not lost. You can get a significant score gain, in 2 weeks. Three would be better, but within 2 weeks. Um, well, first of all, what do I mean by significant score gain, right?
Okay.
If we're talking about 50 points, 50 points is definitely significant. Okay. For the score range we're talking about here, that's going to most likely add up to somewhere around 10 percentile points. So you're going to go up
Okay.
10 points in your percentile ranking. That's huge. That's
Yeah.
massive.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, but I would even qualify a significant score gain as the threshold for that as a little bit lower. So 30 points. That's the bottom. Anything less than that, I wouldn't really count as necessarily a significant score gain. But from 30 points on up, for most students in the score range we're talking about today, a 30 point or sorry, yeah, 30-point score gain is going to be around 5 to 6 percentile points.
Okay.
And that is definitely not nothing. Okay. So with that out of the way, you were asking me about the general approach,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah, just
Okay.
just kind of a general game plan.
So let me again start with a disclaimer. Let's talk about what a good game plan is not.
Okay.
A good game plan is not, and this would be the number one mistake that students make once they have started prep. The number one mistake I mentioned earlier was just for prep in general, right? Before you've even started prep, you've not left yourself enough time to get to where you want to go.
Hmm.
Once you've started prep, here's the number one mistake. You're not going to get where you want to go just by knocking out a bunch of practice questions and or practice tests.
Okay. All
That
right.
is not a good plan. If you've never taken the test before, you might get some benefit. I mean, you would get some benefit just out of taking the test once or twice or maybe three times. But the return on that type of investment very, very quickly diminishes. And it
Hmm.
diminishes, it's a downward slope on the return there. So that's not the plan. Here's what you want to do instead. First and foremost, it is absolutely critical that you learn to identify the specific types of questions you are dealing with.
Okay.
The the SAT is not a, generic agglomeration of, random questions. Each question you face is testing a specific skill set.
Hmm.
And if you know which skill set is being targeted by that question, you can focus your, energy, focus your efforts and your, line of thinking accordingly, right? You know what specifically they are evaluating with that question, and that just cuts right through a ton of noise.
Okay.
So
Hmm.
it's absolutely critical. And it's not rocket science, by the way. It is not difficult to learn to identify a specific question type in front of you at that moment. It does, however, require a commitment.
Hmm.
It requires a little work. Frankly, it's not even that much work. It can get done very quickly if you set your mind to it. The problem is most students, or no, I don't know about most, but a lot of students fail to understand how very critical this step is. So they just sort of gloss over it.
Hmm.
And 3 weeks into prep, 4 weeks into prep, 5 weeks into prep, they're still not exactly sure what kind of question they have in front of them. And yet they're wondering why they're not getting the gains they were hoping for.
Hmm. Right.
So this is the first step in the plan. Okay. Secondly, what logically follows from that, of course, is you need to memorize the strategies and rules that correspond to those question types. Okay.
Okay.
It does you a little good just to know what skills being evaluated. But of course, the real gains come from knowing how to respond to that particular type of question. And
Right.
what we need there is strategies and rule sets that would mostly apply on like grammar questions.
Hmm.
And note that I didn't say learn the strategies and rules. I didn't say become kind of sort of vaguely familiar with the strategies and rules. I said memorize. Yes, the M word. I use it a lot. Memorize the strategies. I mean cold word for word, step for step memorization.
Hmm.
Why is that so critical? That is critical because you don't want to be thinking about strategies and rules and what am I supposed to do now when you're actually on the SAT. There's no time for that, right?
Hmm.
This is a time test. The timing on the digital SAT isn't as tight as it used to be on the paper one, but it's still going to be a challenge, especially on module two. So by the time you take the test, ideally anyway, you want to be responding automatically, right? Out of
Right.
force of habit. Okay.
Hmm.
And the first step to making your approach to the question automatic is memorizing the steps that you have to follow. That's not, of course, not enough in and of itself. But
Sure.
once you've memorized the steps, you can start practicing applying those steps, those strategies, those
Hmm.
rules. And it's through practicing those, the execution of the strategies and rules that this behavior becomes second nature, right? And so what I'm talking about here is, deliberate practice, right?
Okay. Hmm.
Deliberate practice, which is entirely different universe from just generic, right? Blind practice that I was
Yep.
talking about earlier. The results that you get with deliberate practice are orders of magnitude above, just what you would get from mindless grinding, as I like to call it.
Hmm. Well, given that there are different question types, um, is there a type of question or a question type that students can generally master the rules for more quickly?
Well, I'm so glad you asked. Yes, there is. So there is a sort of hierarchy. It's going to vary from student to student
Sure.
somewhat,
Yeah. Yep.
right? When you take your test, your practice test, should be an official practice test, by the
Hmm.
way. Never take any third party, SAT practice tests except for mine. Mine are awesome. The other ones cannot be trusted. No, I just, a lot of the other ones aren't necessarily reliable. As a general rule, there's good stuff out there, but as a general rule, it's best to avoid third-party practice tests if you can,
Hmm.
as much as you can. 100, completely avoid them would be the ideal. But once you've taken that baseline exam, one of the first things you want to do is figure out which question type am I missing the most, right? Which question type am I missing the second most often, et cetera, et
Hmm.
cetera. Okay. So the priority list might vary from student to student somewhat. I'm giving you a generic list here, but the generic list, so-called generic list, is going to apply to the vast majority of students.
Okay.
The
Hmm.
number one question type that you should focus on is going to be standard English conventions for the
Okay.
vast majority of students. Standard English conventions, what people often refer to as the grammar part,
Okay.
right?
All right.
And it does include grammar. It's more than just grammar, but there's certainly grammar and punctuation involved in this part of the exam. Now, why is this the number one area that you should focus on? One, it's usually it usually accounts for a student's major or not majority, but number one category of misses.
Okay.
Most
Hmm.
of the time, the student is if a student has missed 10 questions on a module, it's likely that 3 or 4 of them will be from standard English conventions, and then the rest will be sort of scattered among various other question types,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
So, your mileage may vary, of course, but that's going to be true for many, many students. In my, 13 years of full-time experience,
Hmm.
that's what have observed. Secondly, secondly, standard English conventions is generally the easiest question type to significantly improve on in the shortest period of time.
Okay. All
Grab
right.
your low-hanging fruit first, always, right?
Sure. Yeah. Yep.
So that it should be the first thing that you're looking at. And I need to mention here, for whatever reason, students tend to resist this.
Mm.
And I haven't necessarily completely figured out why this is, but it definitely is the case. A lot of students just don't feel like they really need to work on standard English conventions, even when they are consistently missing them.
Mm. Okay.
Now, I know part of the explanation for this, and this is important for you to understand about yourself if you're, out there listening, or about your student, if you're a parent out there listening, is what students tend to remember when they take a practice test, naturally enough, are the questions that really gave them a hard time.
Mm. Yeah.
Those questions make an impression.
Yep.
Whether the student ultimately got that question right or wrong is really beside the point.
Hmm.
They remember those. and they're scared of those, and they feel an urgent sense, a sense of urgency
Yep.
to work on those. They show up in the session with me and like, we got to work on command of
Yeah.
evidence, right?
Yep.
I have to work on command of evidence today. I say, okay, well, maybe we will. Let's just take a look at what you actually miss on this practice
Yeah.
test, right? And we have a look, and I'm telling you, a lot of times they will not have missed any command of evidence
hmm
questions, while at the same time they've missed 3 or 4 standard English conventions
Yeah.
questions.
Yep.
But they don't want to work on that. They want to work on, inference or the other boogeyman command of evidence. Okay. That is completely understandable because they're just going off of, what they experienced when they were taking the test. They were
Right.
terrorized, right,
Yeah. Yep.
by this question type. So you have to take an objective view. Okay. And the other thing I think is students, for whatever reason, yeah, I missed that, but it was just a fluke. I'll get it right next time, most
hmm
likely. I don't really
Yeah.
need to work on this, granular. I don't need to. I'm good with determining the difference between an independent clause and a dependent clause, really, because your performance on the last 3 practice tests tells a different story.
Right.
Okay, so base your prep priorities on the data.
Yeah.
Okay, not on your emotions, even though your emotions are perfectly understandable. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's standard English conventions. Second would be, speaking of the boogeyman, certain types of command of evidence questions. Okay, luckily,
Okay.
there is a subset of command of evidence questions that, with the right approach, with the right strategy, you can actually improve on significantly in a pretty short period of time without too much
Okay.
trouble.
All right.
So, you want to, there's another category, other categories, subtypes of command of evidence questions that, will really come low on the list. They're what I would call the final boss type of
hmm
questions.
Okay. All right.
You're not going to worry about those if, you're still on boss number 2, right? If you're
Uh-huh.
still in
Yeah.
the middle of the progression, so to speak, don't worry about the final boss questions. But there are, certain types of command of evidence questions that can be dealt with without too much trouble, without too much investment of time. Hit those. And then thirdly, textual evidence questions, which that's my own designation. That would include main idea, main purpose, function, details questions. There are some pretty straightforward strategies that can help you tremendously with these question types that you can learn to apply in a short period of time. The main problem students have on these types of questions is they they get stuck between 2 answer choices. Okay. And everybody who has this problem thinks they're the only person who has this problem.
Yeah.
Okay. You are not the only person who has this problem. Everyone has this problem. The test is designed to give you this problem.
Yep.
Get it down to 2, and then you get stuck and you cannot figure out how to consistently break the tie. There's a small subset of easy to learn strategies that will give you tools to break those ties on a regular basis, and they can be picked up quite quickly. Okay. So there's your top 3, generally speaking. Your
Okay.
mileage may vary somewhat, but
Sure.
most likely it's going to be some, you may be reordering those a little bit, but probably those are going to be your top 3. Now, let's talk about what comes at the bottom. I already talked about the final boss type questions. These are questions you need to hit if you're already scoring 730, 740, 750, and you're realistically aiming for 770, 780, 800. That
hmm
means realistically aiming for 770 means, as I said, you're consistently already hitting at minimum of 730. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So final boss would come at the end, obviously. Those are usually inference questions and command of evidence and a select few textual analysis. Also, what should come toward the bottom, and no one likes to hear this, is words in context, what uh, students commonly refer to as vocab questions. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Why are these a lower priority? The main reason these are lower priority is while they are certainly not simply vocab questions. In fact, uh, you should focus more on your analytical skills, analyzing the passage, than you should on vocab if you are trying to improve on this question type. Um, So while that is the case, it's also true that, vocabulary is central to this question type.
Hmm.
And vocabulary is not something that can be meaningfully improved in a short time frame. The
Okay. Yeah.
English language is gigantic.
Yep.
And the chance of you studying, and learning a particular vocab term, and that term actually showing up in a words and context question on your test, and you having learned that term, making the difference between getting that point or those points and not, are extremely low.
Yeah. It's like
And
it's like hitting a needle in a haystack, right?
it absolutely
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Yes. And, the other thing to keep in mind here is every minute you spend on building up your vocab as a form of test prep
Hmm.
is a minute you're not spending on some other mode of test prep. There's a trade-off. And most of the time, your time would be much better spent on learning, shoring up those standard English conventions, or, command of evidence strategies, or some other question type. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, students don't like to hear this because they like to study vocab. It feels productive. Um, and I'm not, don't get me wrong, I'm not discouraging people from broadening, deepening their lexicon. But as a mode of test prep, and particularly as a form of short-term test prep, this is not going to have the highest payoff.
Yeah. Yep. And it seems like the quote vocab, like we already said, you studying the exact right 100 words or 200 words or 500 words out of the, I don't know how many words are in the English language, but 100,000, I don't know. It's
Yeah,
like hitting a needle in a haystack.
yeah,
But why students probably like to do that is that it is pretty easy. Like it's basically just a form of memorization, right?
yeah.
Yeah, yep. So that might answer the question of why they want to do it, but I think it's a great point that because of the odds, it's probably not effective, especially as a short-term strategy.
Yeah, yep, that's absolutely right.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna just put the issue aside for a second of the short term. For somebody who might be listening, who has younger students, what are your thoughts on just simply having the student read something every day, not as a means of formal test prep, but something that they can do that will have a really great effect on SAT.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
If we're talking longer term, and as you said, not even a form of test prep, right? The more well-read you are,
Hmm.
the better off you're going to be on the SAT.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your fundamental skills make a huge difference. The test prep strategy is there to squeeze every little, last drop of juice
Yeah.
out of your baseline abilities. Yeah. So the higher, the more juice you have in there, the better
Hmm.
off you are.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep. Yep. Well, and obviously, again, you've already said that your expertise is on the reading and that side of things. But just to use an analogy on the math side, it would be like trying to get a high math SAT score for a student who really doesn't understand how to add one plus one, right? Like you said, that's the juice is there. It's the prep and the strategies that are getting every drop of juice out of the exercise.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Test prep can, solid test prep can generally get a significant score increase for almost anybody,
Yeah.
right? But where you're starting
Yep.
depends, determines your ceiling, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm guessing the answer to this question is yes, but is there a resource that you recommend for students who need to increase their score in a short time frame?
Well, I'm so glad you asked. And as it turns out, there absolutely is. And that would be, of course, my crash course.
Yep.
So, why, for a long time, I refused to do this. Okay. I've refused to create a crash course because that's not the ideal approach, as we
Yeah.
have
Yep.
already discussed. And, I want to push people to, do it the right way and reach their absolute maximum potential
Yep.
on this test, et cetera, et cetera. But the reality is, as I also mentioned, life does happen, especially for people maybe who are just, just starting out and kind of naive about how the whole thing works.
Hmm.
And maybe they've also followed the party line. There is a party line out there that goes sort of, oh, the SAT is not a huge deal. You don't need to expend a bunch of effort on it. Um, just, do well in school and you should be fine on the SAT. Okay. And a lot of students who do really quite well in school find, surprise, surprise, their SAT score is not aligned with their school
Yep.
performance. Okay. So, that's what my practice has mainly been focused on. But is that longer term approach? But yes, people do get taken by surprise, or people just end up, oh my gosh, the test is 3 weeks away and we haven't even started preparing. I don't know how this
Hmm.
happened, but anyway, what now? Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
So, because that is a common occurrence, I designed my SAT reading and writing crash course. And it is designed basically to do all of the things we have just been discussing. You do not, especially 3 weeks out from the exam, you do not want to start reinventing the wheel. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
There is a proper approach to this. Test prep tutors, expert test prep tutors can help you to take the most efficient approach. And so
Hmm.
I've just packaged everything we've been talking about into, it's not 2 weeks, but it's a 3-week curriculum.
Okay.
There are 3 live sessions with me each week in this course. The course starts 3 weeks before every national SAT date. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Now I know we was saying, 50 points in 2 weeks is the focus for this episode. You can do the crash course in 2 weeks. You would miss some of the live sessions with me. However, those live sessions are recorded.
Hmm.
And if you join the course, you have access to those sessions that you missed. There are also targeted practice packs that you receive after every session. So you can do that deliberate practice we've
Hmm.
been talking about. And of course, it hits the specific question types that you're most likely to be able to master in the shortest period of time.
That's awesome. I think one thing I want to throw out from the, my side of things, the scholarship side, is that a 50-point gain, again, depending on, where the baseline is, can really have some significant scholarship value. I mean, it could bump you from no merit aid up to the first level of merit aid, or maybe even the second. Or if you're already at that second or third, it might bump you up to, full tuition. I mean, it can have a very significant monetary scholarship financial impact. So definitely a great bang for your buck.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Many students come to me, or parents, more accurately speaking, come to me specifically for that reason,
Yeah. Yep.
because there's a particular scholarship or group of scholarships that they want to qualify for. They want their
Hmm.
student to qualify for. So my job is to help them get there. And I've done that many, many times. And, that what you just said is what they always report back to me, and thankfully tend to, post in their testimonials, is the return on investment is definitely worth it.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Now, I
What?
should mention, Dave, I should mention, sorry for interrupting, but I
Yeah.
forgot to mention along the way. Uh, th- I'm talking, when I talk about 50-point gain in 2 weeks or maybe 3 weeks, um, I am talking about a specific, this is most likely to be the case for a specific score range. If your
Okay. Okay.
current score range is roughly from 570 on SAT reading and writing, not on the test as a
Hmm.
whole, okay?
Yep. Okay. Yeah.
570 to 670, give or take 10 points or so, right?
Okay. All right.
570 to 670, that's where you're most likely to get that, if you if you follow the advice I've given in this session on your own or take my crash course, get that 50-point gain, 30 to 50-point gain, potentially more. If you're already scoring higher, a lot of times you are going to need hyper targeted uh,
Hmm.
advice,
Hmm.
right? And if you're scoring significantly lower, you're going to need address things that I haven't talked about that are not included in the crash course, more fundamental skill set
Hmm. Yeah.
types of
Yeah.
issues. So, but if you're roughly between 570 and 670, then this is for you.
Okay. Okay, that's great. Yeah, and that makes sense. Like you said, if the scores are significantly lower, then it is more of a fundamentals issue. And like with anything, the closer you get to that quote perfect score, um, the more specific and detailed and personalized it needs to be, right?
Yeah, that's right. A lot of people, misunderstand this. Like, well, my student's already scoring, 740. So just, probably one or two sessions will do it to get the rest of the way
Yeah,
home,
yeah,
right?
no,
And
no.
I can understand that, why you would think that, right? Like,
At
oh,
first blush, it seems logical.
yes,
Yeah,
but generally speaking, that is not the case.
right. Yep. Um, how do people sign up for the crash course?
Absolutely. So the next crash course is, like I said, it starts 3 weeks before every national SAT day
Mhm.
on the Monday. So the next crash course is going to be for the March SAT, the national SAT date happening in March.
Okay.
And you can get all the information about that iteration of the crash course by going to my website, walkertestprep.com/scholarship GPS, all one word.
Okay. All right.
walkertestprep.com/scholarship GPS. If you go there and you decide you want to uh, take the course, enroll in the course, uh, use the link on that page and you will receive a 10% discount.
Awesome. Well, I very much appreciate it. I love when my listeners and readers and audience get a little extra for following me. So thank you for that, Dave.
You are most welcome. Thank you.
Um, Before I let you go, I want to tease something. We're going to have you back sometime in the spring because you have something coming out that I just want to give people a little flavor of what's coming, coming their way soon. Can you tell us what's in the works for you?
Yes, it's been in the works for a very long time, and it's just about ready to release to the public, and I'm very excited about it. I have a book coming out. This is, of course, an SAT reading and writing test prep book. I think it's going to be a tremendous resource for many, many families. It's essentially everything that I've learned about effective test prep in the last, 13 years that I've been doing this full time. I don't hold anything back here. It's the best of the best of the strategies and rules and tactics that I've gleaned, from helping hundreds of students score in the 90th to 99th percentile range on SAT reading and writing. So yeah, very excited about it. And we are definitely going to have some goodies to offer your audience when that book comes out. The published date, it is currently available for pre-sale, but the official published date is February 5th of 2026.
Awesome. Great. Well, good. Well, in the meantime, people should be looking at the crash course and or even more ideally, your more what would the right word be? Not long-term course, but a longer runway.
Comprehensive?
Comprehensive. Thank you. Thank you. Of course, you would come up with the vocabulary for me, right?
Well, actually, you're the one who's always coming up with the amazing metaphors for me. So I still owe you. I'm still way behind you on that front.
Oh, I don't know about that. Dave, we'll look forward to hearing from you again soon when the book releases. Thank you so much for your insights today. and just really appreciate everything you're doing, and look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Okay, I appreciate it, Dave. Thank you very much. And yes, looking forward to talking with you again soon.